Welcome to Movie Recap Vault. Today we're diving into the movie The Menu. Tyler begs Margot not to smoke before their extravagant dinner, explaining that Hawthorne charges 12 guests an astonishing price for one evening. Margot scoffs. At the dock, Tyler identifies the other diners: wealthy businessmen, celebrated critic Lillian Bloom, and a fading movie star with his assistant. Margot watches. A ferry carries the 12 guests toward Hawthorne Island, where an oyster amuse-bouche immediately reveals Tyler's obsessive culinary knowledge and Margot's skepticism. Tyler praises every technical detail, while Margot says she would rather eat a plain oyster, establishing how differently they approach food and status. Restaurant Captain Elsa welcomes everyone, but notices Tyler brought Margot instead of the woman listed on his reservation, an unexpected change she records. During the island tour, Elsa explains that Hawthorne grows, gathers, ferments, and prepares almost everything served during the 4-hour tasting menu. Nothing is wasted. The guests pass workers harvesting ingredients in a Scandinavian smokehouse, while Tyler treats every detail like a sacred revelation from chef Julian Slowik. Elsa warns that meat aged one day beyond its exact schedule could become lethal, presenting Hawthorne's perfectionism with a disturbingly casual smile. Margot listens. She reveals that the entire staff lives on the island, working punishing hours under Slowik and treating the restaurant as one disciplined family. Margot asks about a secluded cottage, but Elsa says even the staff cannot enter because it belongs exclusively to the chef. No exceptions apply. Inside the dining room, guests face an open kitchen where every movement is synchronized, and Elsa forbids photographs of the carefully arranged dishes. Tyler recognizes an expensive kitchen device and thrills when the staff knows his name, confirming that he has studied Hawthorne for months. Tyler beams. The first small course arrives as sculpted melon and frozen cream, impressing the diners while Margot remains visibly detached from the performance. Margot shrugs. Around the tables, the actor's assistant announces she plans to leave him, while the three businessmen boast about charging everything to their company. Tyler describes chefs as artists who command life and death, but Margot sees his worship of Slowik as shallow, needy, and increasingly strange. A single clap silences the room and Julian Slowik finally enters, calm and severe with his cook standing behind him in perfect formation. Slowik welcomes the guests and asks them not merely to eat, but to taste each element thoughtfully, as though accepting a solemn ritual. The first official course, called the Island, combines seawater, plants, rocks, and seafood gathered from the surrounding shore. The plate resembles the shoreline. Slowik explains that nature will continue without humanity, reducing the wealthy diners and their refined appetites to a meaningless instant. The speech darkens dinner. Tyler is moved to tears by the speech and worries about pleasing Slowik, while Margot reminds him that they are paying customers. Margot scoffs. Lillian performs elaborate criticism for her editor Ted, while the actor and businessmen treat the meal as publicity, networking, or a tax deduction. Margot notices that nearly everyone came to consume an experience rather than enjoy food, exactly the attitude Slowik appears to despise. Margot notices. For the next course, Slowik delivers a grand history of bread as the basic food of workers, peasants, and ordinary people. It sounds ceremonial. Because his guests are anything but ordinary, Slowik serves only elaborate sauces and announces that they will receive no bread at all. Nobody laughs. The room laughs uncertainly, but Lillian praises the provocation even while noticing a broken emulsion, revealing how criticism can excuse obvious failure. Margot disagrees. Tyler insists the missing bread belongs to a larger story, while Margot argues that a restaurant should still give people something satisfying to eat. The businessmen invoke restaurant owner Doug Varick and demand bread, assuming their money and connections place them above Slowik's rules. Their leverage means nothing. Elsa refuses without hesitation, then warns they will eat less than they desire and more than they deserve. Elsa simply walks away. When Margot declines the sauces, staff members pressure her to participate because Slowik calculated every portion and designed the menu as a complete experience. Margot refuses to surrender that choice, and Tyler embarrasses her by siding with the restaurant instead of respecting her discomfort. Tyler ignores her anger. A wine described as tasting of regret accompanies private tensions. The actor fears irrelevance, and his assistant quietly plans a better career. Felicity listens. Slowik introduces a taco course built around memory, pointing out his drunken mother and recalling the abusive father who terrorized their home. He describes stabbing his father with kitchen scissors to save his mother, turning a childhood trauma into entertainment for the horrified dining room. The guests receive chicken tacos on tortillas engraved with images, documents, and photographs drawn from their own hidden lives. Each image targets someone. Lillian sees restaurants destroyed by her reviews, Tyler sees forbidden photographs, and Richard's tortilla exposes another woman to his wife, Anne. Anne studies Richard. The businessmen discover fraudulent invoices and tax records printed on their tortillas, proving Hawthorne has investigated every guest before the dinner. Panic replaces confidence. They threaten Elsa with legal and financial retaliation, but she remains calm, while Richard dismisses the evidence of his affair as a cruel fabrication. Margot orders Tyler to return the photographs, then confronts him for treating her like property simply because he paid for the evening. Tyler protests. Seeking space, Margot heads toward the restroom and pauses at the forbidden silver door leading deeper into Slowik's private area. Nobody follows her. Slowik intercepts her and demands to know why she refuses his food, taking her rejection as a personal wound against his craft. She refuses. He quickly senses that Margot is an alias and states that she was never meant to attend this carefully planned dinner. He is unsettled. Back in the dining room, Slowik introduces sous chef Jeremy, a talented young cook who desperately wants his mentor's prestige and approval. Jeremy steps forward. Slowik humiliates Jeremy by declaring he will never become great, despite sacrificing his health, youth, and identity to the kitchen. Jeremy cannot answer. After Jeremy admits he does not want Slowik's empty life, he shoots himself, and the course is presented as a dish called the mess. The guests panic, but the staff orders everyone seated and coolly treats the suicide as another precisely timed element of the menu. Nobody moves. Tyler clings to the fantasy that everything is theater, refusing to accept the danger even as blood spreads across the kitchen floor. Richard and Anne attempt to leave, demanding transportation and medical help, but Elsa blocks their path and calls the boat unavailable. Elsa never flinches. When Richard pushes forward, the staff restrains him and cuts off his ring finger, finally proving the evening's violence is completely real. Anne screams. The terrified guests return to their tables, while the movie star admits he invented a friendship with Slowik merely to impress his assistant. Slowik summons Margot to the kitchen and explains that every guest, course, and death was planned long before she replaced Tyler's date. Margot listens. He announces that everyone on the island will die, then forces Margot to choose whether she belongs with the servers or the consumers. Given 15 minutes, Margot returns to the dining room as the guests whisper about knives, exits, and one desperate attempt to overpower the staff. The businessmen rush forward but are immediately subdued, after which the staff calmly serves tea and restores the room's artificial order. The plan collapses. Slowik invites questions, then describes the guests as ingredients in a tasting menu designed to expose everything poisonous about his career. Nobody is innocent. He blames Lillian for destroying livelihoods with careless reviews and Ted for feeding her ego instead of challenging her authority. Ted remains silent. Next he condemns Richard and Anne, who visited Hawthorne 11 times yet cannot remember a single dish Slowik created for them. Neither can answer. Slowik reveals investor Doug Varick suspended outside over the water, calling him the owner who reduced the chef's art to a profitable asset. Ignoring the guests' pleas and offers of money, Slowik drowns Varick, punishing the man who controlled Hawthorne and repeatedly interfered with its menu. With the dining room silent, Slowik sends Margot into his private office and demands her answer about which side she belongs on. She obeys. Margot admits she should not be there and bluntly rejects his claim of genius, angering him but also earning a trace of respect. Slowik recognizes her as another service worker and exposes Richard as a former client who paid her to perform a degrading fantasy. Margot freezes. Margot describes the humiliating encounter, and she and Slowik acknowledge that serving others once brought genuine pleasure before customers destroyed it. They understand. Slowik orders every guest outside for the next course, where staff members surround them beneath the island's cold night sky. Escape remains impossible. Sous chef Catherine reveals Slowik sexually harassed her, then presents Man's Folly, a course celebrating the damage caused by powerful men. Catherine never hesitates. The male guests receive 45 seconds to run before Hawthorne's staff begins hunting them through the dark forest. The timer starts immediately. The women remain at the table, served food and wine, while husbands, colleagues, and companions abandon them without hesitation. None of them objects. Even under threat, Lillian continues analyzing flavors, exposing how completely professional vanity controls her understanding of the night. Death changes nothing. Cooks chase the men between trees, while Anne recognizes Margot and quietly confirms that Richard once hired her. The hunt closes in. Catherine tells the women that every death is necessary to complete the menu, even though the murder plan originally came from her. The last captured man receives an egg dish as a prize, and Margot finally reveals her real name is Aaron from Massachusetts. Everyone listens. the men are returned to the restaurant, where their claims of bravery collapse as the staff strips away the final illusion of control. Slowik turns to Tyler and asks what he was told during months of secret correspondence before receiving the coveted invitation. Tyler cannot evade him. Tyler admits he knew everyone would die, yet hired Margot because Hawthorne would not accept a reservation for one person. Margot finally understands. Slowik rewards his devotion by dressing him in a chef's jacket and welcoming the self-proclaimed expert into the kitchen. Tyler mistakes humiliation for honor. Before the entire room, Slowik orders Tyler to cook, forcing him to prove whether his obsessive knowledge contains any actual skill. Tyler nervously chops leeks, burns butter, and mishandles lamb while Slowik narrates every mistake with merciless amusement. His confidence vanishes instantly. The finished plate is a greasy disaster, and Slowik names it Tyler's bullshit before whispering something devastating into his ear. The guests watch silently. Tyler apologizes and walks away broken. Moments later, Margot sees that he has hanged himself in a nearby corridor. The corridor becomes his grave. Slowik apologizes for the unscheduled interruption, announces the final dessert, and sends Margot to retrieve a missing barrel from the smokehouse. Margot understands. Elsa reluctantly gives Margot the keys, jealous that Slowik now treats the outsider as part of Hawthorne's trusted staff. Elsa resents the decision. Meanwhile, the movie star asks why he deserves death, and Slowik cites one terrible film that wasted his only free Sunday. It is absurd. His assistant asks why she must die too. Slowik learns she attended an elite university without debt and dismisses her as equally privileged. Margot reaches the smokehouse but slips towards Slowik's cottage, using the errand as her only chance to search for an escape. Nobody follows her. Inside the dark, immaculate home, she finds rooms preserved like a museum, revealing how completely Slowik separated himself from ordinary life. Silence surrounds her. Elsa catches her trespassing and attacks, convinced Margot wants to replace her as Slowik's closest and most loyal servant. Their rivalry turns violent. During the brutal struggle, Margot grabs a knife and fatally stabs Elsa, then continues searching before the staff notices. Elsa dies beside her. She discovers press clippings, awards, and an old photograph of young Slowik smiling while cooking hamburgers at a humble diner. The smile changes everything. A hidden radio lets Margot call for help, while the dining room staff absurdly sings happy birthday to businessman Bryce. She reports an emergency. Margot returns before Slowik suspects anything, listening as he describes himself as a monster whose final service now feels pure and selfless. A patrol boat approaches the island, and the guests briefly believe Margot's distress call has finally brought genuine rescue. Hope returns instantly. A supposed Coast Guard officer enters, questions Elsa about the emergency, and studies the terrified diners around the room. He appears convincing. Recognizing the movie star, the officer requests an autograph, giving the actor a chance to secretly write a plea for help. He writes help. The officer suddenly draws his weapon, and the guests surge with hope as he orders Slowik and the staff to surrender. Everyone rises. Then he fires a blank and removes his disguise. He is Dale, another Hawthorne cook, and the entire rescue was part of the menu. Slowik condemns Margot for betraying the kitchen and declares that her failed radio call proves she belongs with the consumers. Margot says nothing. Refusing his categories, Margot stands and says she dislikes the food, wants to cancel her order, and remains hungry. Slowik demands an explanation. She calls the menu joyless, cold, and obsessed with cleverness, arguing that Slowik has forgotten the basic pleasure of feeding someone. Silence follows. Margot asks for a simple cheeseburger, challenging Slowik to prepare the kind of honest food he once cooked with happiness. Slowik accepts the challenge. The request transforms him. Slowik asks about doneness, cheese, and price, then returns to the griddle with genuine concentration. His expression softens. He smashes the beef, melts American cheese, and cooks fries, briefly becoming the smiling young cook from the photograph. For once he smiles. Margot receives the burger, takes a real bite, and praises it while Slowik watches with the first sincere satisfaction of the night. Margot smiles. Claiming she cannot finish, Margot asks for the rest to go, turning a customer's ordinary request into a path out of Hawthorne. Slowik understands. Slowik packs the burger, accepts her payment, and allows her to leave as the remaining guests silently watch their only survivor depart. Nobody stops her. After Margot exits, Slowik returns to the doomed diners, presents the bill, and thanks them for helping complete his final work. Nobody protests. The staff covers every guest in marshmallows and chocolate hats, transforming the dining room into the components of an enormous human s'more. Nobody escapes. Slowik presents the final dessert as a corrupted childhood classic. While the trapped guests finally stop resisting and accept their assigned roles, they surrender. The cooks ignite the restaurant, and Slowik stands with his staff as fire consumes Hawthorne, the guests, and his entire obsessive creation. Slowik smiles. Hawthorne erupts in flames. From the escaping boat, Margot eats her cheeseburger, watches the island burn, and wipes her mouth with the menu. The packed burger